All right, fellows, looks like we got it now. X seemed to rock us a little bit again, but yeah, we are almost on time. Welcome to Mint Map Spaces on this beautiful Friday. Jason, let me know if you can hear me, and I'll tell you if I can hear you.
I can hear you, my friend. How are you?
That's perfect, man. I'm great. I'm doing very good. Happy that the weekend is ahead, and I saw you were up pretty early today, right?
Yeah, I pretty much stayed up all night, and I don't know. I was wired, man, and I think I messaged you late last night and told you I was kind of binge watching the new Lord of the Rings season, just kind of nerding out on that. And then by the time I got finished watching, I was a bit wired and I wasn't really able to fall asleep. So about the time the sun was coming up, I just went outside and watched the sunrise and took some photos. And just kind of, I guess in a way, I was kind of starting to reset my brain there a little bit to just kind of rewire itself to the morning being what it was, because I think I've just been off my schedule for so long that it doesn't know anymore. But anyway, I came inside after that and then basically just crashed for a little bit. So I slept maybe an hour or two. So not very long at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw that you were like having some sort of interaction on X, and I felt like, man, that's like it was so early my time, and you're usually waking up a little later. So now I got the explanation, man. Lord of the Rings. Didn't even know that there was a series actually. Are you a fan of the movies?
Um, I am a fan of the movies. There's one movie that was basically, I don't know, the way I remember it, I'm sure I'm not remembering it correctly, but I remember it being about 45 minutes of just, like fight scenes, like this one massive fight scene. I don't remember which movie it was, but that was the only one that really kind of dragged on and on and on. Other than that, sort of the world building and storytelling that's happening in that film series, man, is just phenomenal. I thought Peter Jackson did a great job with the creativity, the art direction, and then of course when they came out, it was early in the digital world. I mean, I think they came out back early 2000s, mid 2000s. The first ones did anyway, and they were doing a lot with video that had not been done before. And so it was really cool to see all these different things come to play, on one screen. So that sort of captured my imagination. I never really got into the books or anything like that, and never really was much of a reader when I was younger. So this was kind of my way of diving into that world for the first time. So for me, it was really fresh. But yeah, Amazon is doing a series called Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power, I think it is. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But basically what they're doing is they're sort of telling the backstory to the movies. It's sort of going back into time and it's telling a little bit more of how everything led up to the happenings in the movies and in the books and some of that world building. And it's interesting because obviously Tolkien, died many years ago, but a group of writers has taken, some of his unpublished work and some of the things that he had created and have just run with it. And for the most part, I think they've done a pretty good job. But I'm a sucker for all that, sort of, medieval looking, knights on horseback, fighting for the, fighting the good fight with a purpose and all that. I'm a sucker for all those types of stories. So it wouldn't matter if it was Lord of the Rings or something else. If it looks like that and it's filmed like that and has that kind of a story, I get sucked in, man.
Yeah, it's crazy because actually when people create a series from movies, and the books were first obviously, and people watching the movies for the first time who have read the books are usually like, hey, the books are so much better. And then you get the series now and you see people like watching the series and they're like, man, the movies were so much better. And it's like always the same, like if it's what you call that first mover advantage as well. But I heard that for example, like Harry Potter is actually getting a series as well. basically telling the same story again, and yeah, it will probably be the same result.
I hadn't heard that. Like when all that Harry Potter stuff came out, dude, again, I wasn't into it at all. I know people were really jumping into those books and going, deep into them. And then, I mean, years after the books came out, then the movies came out, and I think after all the movies had come out, I don't know, I was going through, Walmart or someplace, and they had, one of those sale racks of DVDs where like the DVDs are like, 50 cents or $1 or something like that. And so they happened to have all the Harry Potter movies in one of those, bargain bins. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see what this is all about. And so I just bought all the DVDs probably for less than $10. And I went home and I just started binging the DVDs, and I got into that universe as well. They did a really good job of storytelling and world building, and again, just a sucker for that kind of thing. And it pulled me in, and so I could totally understand how people really, have an affinity for those books and those stories.
I gotta ask one question because that's something I always wondered about Harry Potter. Because you obviously it's been filmed in the UK, and all these actors are speaking like native English speakers. Does this somehow annoy you guys in the United States, that the accents and everything, or because there's not like a dubbed version for you, right? So is it like disturbing or somehow or annoying, or is it like are you guys used to it?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for me, but there are some shows that are very difficult to understand, and I literally will watch them with subtitles on, especially some of the Irish shows or the Scottish shows. And when they get to talking really fast, I have no idea. Sometimes the accent is so thick, I can't make out the English words. But for the most part, the type of stuff that happens in the standard UK or British English, most of that stuff is really well understood, and it's not too bad. In fact, like I think one of the beautiful things that and this is, I guess you would consider this one of the art forms of the modern streaming services, is like now that we have Amazon Prime or Netflix or whatever, a lot of the content is coming from different parts of the world. And so some of my favorite shows now are, Norwegian or whatever. And they're filmed in the native language. And many of them don't have like a secondary audio track with English dubbed in. So I'll just watch the shows in the native language on subtitles, and I'll pick up a word here and there. But there's a lot of great storytelling, and I think that one of the tests actually for a great piece of artwork in the film industry is if you can watch it in a foreign language and still really get into the story, still suspend your disbelief. I think that's a really great sort of a standard that you can look for when it comes to, like, is this quality, is the actor actually, really doing a good job of embodying the role and telling you the story, because 90% of communication is nonverbal, right? So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely, man. And it's funny because I talked to Lewis today, and I showed him our X23 version, like to give him an idea, because Lewis is the artist who's like joining us or actually like helping us create new traits and everything for the collection on Stargaze. And when I sent him the X23 piece to show him something that we have created, he was basically thinking that he was supposed to create similar things. Like he thought that he was like, yeah, supposed to create some superhero stuff and everything. And he told me that he was absolutely not into that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's interesting because obviously you are a big fan of Marvel and everything. And you can definitely see that influence in our collection as well. Um, and if you look at, for example, at Lewis art, what he does, and for other projects and everything, you can basically see, and that's something I told him in the very beginning. I told him like, dude, I can actually see from the art that you create that we must probably be like the same age almost, because you can see that he brings in a lot of stuff from, like from movies back then, from TV shows and what he tweets on X. And yeah, it's interesting to see how even that stuff is like so much influenced by our lives.
Yeah, 100%, man. There's no shortage to, how we're influenced. And I think there's actually one of the books that I'm reading right now, or actually listening to on audio, is a book by Jonathan Haidt. It's called The Anxious Generation, and it's talking a great deal about how, um, like like Gen Z, which is the generation after the millennials. So these would be kids who were born like late 90s, early 2000s, and how they're socialized, because the iPhone came out in 2007, and then the first phones with forward-facing cameras came out in 2012, and Instagram did as well. And it sort of changed the way that children were socialized. And it talks about a lot about human development, and like the first couple years of our lives, we go really, really fast, and then we slow down for like for about 7 years until we reach that that 10 to 13 year old spot, and then we start to speed up again, and that developmental phase from like 10 to 15, it's earlier for girls and a little bit later for boys. Everything that you experience has a massive, massive impact on how you perceive the world and how you go through life. And to look at someone's artwork or to look at someone's creative output, you can almost always see what they were influenced by if you've seen it before in your own life. And people are always looking for things that feel like home or feel nostalgic. So like in some of Lewis's work or Petunios's work, I can see, a lot of the influences that he experienced, and I can see that he was younger than me. Um, and all of that sort of stuff sort of is telling about how we grew up and when we grew up, and it's really kind of beautiful. And you see this in the collectibles market as well, and this directly ties to NFTs. We've talked about this a few times. When you have something that you've experienced through that developmental phase of your life, it's something that you will probably hold on to for many, many years later into your teens and maybe even into your early 20s. And then at some point, you might actually drop it. And then at some point in life, you might have this feeling of nostalgia and you want to come back to it. And this is why you see collectible markets cycle every 20 to 30 years. So, for example, like one of the things that's really hot for my age group right now are the new G.I. Joe figures that have been released in the 6-inch size. So when I was a little kid, growing up in the 80s, that's when they were released. And, we were all basically poor. I remember, when I was a little kid, I had a little Hershey's chocolate tin. It's like a cocoa tin. That had a little slot in the top, and I would save, my allowance, and whatever money I would earn, I would just drop into this little Hershey tin, and it would kind of be like my little bank. And then once a week, when my mom would take us shopping or whatever, I would always cross my fingers and hope I had enough change in my little, Hershey tin or whatever to buy a GI Joe figure. And at that point, they were like, I don't know, like $2 or $2.50 or whatever it was. And my allowance was like 25 or 50 cents a week, depending on, what my chores were, how much work I did around the house. And then, nowadays, like here we are, like 30 years later, you see these figures re-released, and everyone in my generation who grew up with those figures is like dying for them. Like they don't even stay on the shelves, like they can't keep them in stock, and now a figure is 25 to 30 bucks. It's just amazing that people really, really seek out that, those feelings that they had of nostalgia and growing up, and really try to bottle that. And I think NFTs are going to be the same. Like we're all going through this phase right now where the NFT market is in its infancy, and it's going to mature over time. And all of the, the mints that we created, and all of the times that we shared, creating a particular collection or getting into a particular collection, and like talking about it and sharing it, at some point this will fall away from the youngest, and they'll go and they'll do a career or what have you, and then 20 to 30 years later, they'll come back and want to collect and want to see all those things again. You see this with comics, you see this with classic cars. Anything that's collectible, you'll see this like 20 to 30-year gap. And so this is one of the things that I'm banking on, and one of the reasons I'm so bullish on early NFTs, because I feel like nostalgia, in addition to the experience, is going to be one of the huge drivers. And two, like once we get through the adoption curve, which we really are, just now beginning to enter, when you start adding in all those souls, all those people, and then you multiply this across the planet, because this is not a local phenomenon, whereas, GI Joe, I think, came from Action Force, which was originally originated in Europe, I believe, in like the 60s. Like the first GI Joe figures were like early 60s, and they were derivative of Action Force figures that came out of the UK. So like if you weren't in the UK, or if you weren't in, the US, then you didn't experience that, and so, but this is totally different. Like this NFT scene is totally different. It's global. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like to come back when people are looking at the date stamps on NFTs going, oh man, like I really want to get that early one, or oh, I remember that one from back in the day and I really want to, come back, and now that I have some disposable income, see if I can pick up all these things that I maybe weren't able to pick up when I was younger.
Yeah, man, I was just a little confused for a minute right now because I had actually no idea what or who G.I. Joe was, to be honest. And I just Googled real quick, and it got me to a movie that came out like 15 years ago, starring Channing Tatum. And I was like, dude, and you were collecting like action figures? And then I saw that it was basically based on these toys back in like in the 50s or 60s. I don't know. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's. I mean, it basically it was born out of World War II, right? Like in the UK, like all the allies were fighting the Axis powers, right? And so they were the first. They were GI Joe was like the very first, I guess you'd say, doll for boys, right? This is where the term action figure came from, right? Because boys didn't want to play with dolls, so we had to call them something different. So we had to call them action figures, right? So like my dad, his generation would have been maturing like right after World War II in like the 60s, right? And then when he came along and got married and then had children later in life in like the late 70s, early 80s, like there was another generation that was exposed to those original toys. The original ones were 12 inches, and then the early 80s ones, I think they came out in 82. They were 4 inches, and then now the figures have all kind of settled on this sort of 6 inch, um, you know, like a 6 inch sort of scale. And I could see like a lot of NFT projects that do really well. Like if you really want to do collectibles, like 6 inch figures are where it's at right now. For some reason, it's like the perfect marriage between 12 and 4. And there's a lot of different things you can do with that scale that you aren't able to do with the ones that are larger or smaller. And so I could see at some point in the future, as our IP continues to expand and grow, that we, have figures that relate to some of the storytelling and comics that we talked about doing, and diving into that world. So, this is something that I do collect, like comics and action figures and that sort of thing. I try to stay on top of that market a little bit because it is directly tied to the real world version of what we're doing with NFTs. And then, of course, we've talked about Todd McFarlane, who does the DC figures, and tying those DC figures to NFTs, this RWA stuff, this real world asset tokenization stuff. This is all gonna, I think, change the game of collecting forever, because you're gonna get not just the physical piece, but a digital piece to go with it. And ultimately, this is gonna tie back to all IP that's of quality in the marketplace right now. And yeah, it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be one of the coolest things. So yeah, with that said, I'll just take a moment and welcome everyone. I know Alex and I have been talking about movies and action figures for a moment, but yeah, welcome to the space. I see Bilo popped in. We got a few other folks popped in. We've got the multi-chain man who I invited to join us the other day. And in fact, we've got these guys have a mint going on right now on Stargaze, and we are getting ready to do a drop on Stargaze as well. And I know that the multi-chain men, I think they began their mint on Wednesday, and maybe he can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think they began their mint on Wednesday to their whitelist, and I think it's going to open up here in just a little bit to us normal people. I wasn't on the whitelist, so I was going to jump in there and support these guys. But for anyone within earshot of my voice, I've been on a few spaces. I was actually doing a rental property renovation. My wife and I, we own a couple rental properties. I was doing a renovation down in Phoenix and just bored out of my skull doing some of this work, which is perfect time to, listen to books and philosophy and all the rest of it and learn. And I actually stumbled across a couple of those spaces that, um, at this point, the Matic Man was putting out, and jumped on a couple of those spaces and just realized we shared some similar values, and ended up listening to quite a few of those spaces over the course of time. And it was uh, it was nice to hear because obviously this was, something that Alex, you and I have talked a lot about is, finding good people in the marketplace doing good things. And there's definitely an affinity that I felt toward some of the things that they were putting forth. So if you want to request the mic, brother, I'll be glad to toss it your way. I'd love to hear how your mint's going, and you can tell us a little bit about your project, and maybe give us a little advice on our upcoming drop. But yeah, welcome everybody. We're going to jump into some more NFT stuff, and I'd love to hear from the multi-chain man, and we'll get anyone who wants to throw up an opinion. You feel free to request a mic. We'll be happy to have you guys jump up and say what's up.
Yeah, man, definitely. Are you talking about the women of FADA from the Multi-Chain Man? Is that right? I'm not sure. I listened to the spaces yesterday. I haven't listened to the full space, but it should be like the women of FADA, right?
Yeah, the women of FADA. FADA, either
FADA.
is okay. Yes. And yeah, we're really excited. We actually, the whitelist mint started about 23 hours ago, Thursday at 3 p.m. EST or EDT. And so we're getting ready to finish that 24-hour whitelist phase and getting ready to go into the public phase. So we just hit 85% minted. So yeah, we're excited. Who knows? Maybe the last a little bit over an hour, maybe we'll mint out. Won't even have to go into public. But yeah, I've actually had a little mint anxiety. I've been through this a couple of times before, and I am a perfectionist. It's a new blockchain, and Stargaze has been absolutely incredible. It's just been a little bit of a learning curve for us, even getting wallets, on a new blockchain, because we've been on Polygon for so long and now coming to a new blockchain. It's been a little bit of a learning curve, but they've been patient, they've been gracious, and it's starting all to take shape.
Yeah,
That's
for for I got a couple questions because like I said, I haven't really listened to the spaces yesterday, but I checked it out today. The woman of Fada, as you pronounced it. Um, First of all, congratulations on the pre-sale. It looks very very good. I was actually hoping to mint one as well if it goes to public, but let's see. Um, I saw that there is a specific number of like the supply. What's the story behind that?
Something that we do, my original vision for what we're building, it started back in 2022 in January. And my original vision that was that we would have three collections and that we'd have the crypto crew superheroes, trying to save the crypto industry. And then a year later, the Legion of Gloom, these villains like Bear, Rugger, Hacker, Fed, FUD, FOMO, Black Swan, Red Candle, these villains that were trying to destroy the crypto industry. And then the last collection would be Crypto Kids with the idea of trying to onboard younger people to Web3. But along the way, just developing, trust in the Polygon ecosystem because unfortunately, and you guys touched on it, unfortunately, there's a lot of, or there are bad actors in Web3, and when people, find a person or a project or an NFT business that they feel has integrity, that, that's there for the right reason, people gravitate towards that. And over the last 18 months, we've had a number of projects that were turned over to us to try to salvage the communities. And so now we have actually 10 IPs under our umbrella. And we recently just rebranded all of that to the Blockchain Bunch. And so it's been really a daunting task to try to stay on top of all of this. But something that we try to do to reward communities is people that hold NFTs from our other collections. We try to do different things to return value to them. And one thing we do is we give airdrops for new mints to those who have already been a part of our community. And so we had 5 different collections. And again, 3 had been we had acquired over the last year. Uh, we give them airdrops for the new collection. So we have, of course, Crypto Crew, Legion. We acquired a project called the Leos, which is a leopard themed project. We have Bullygon, and then we have the original FADA collection, which was the Faded Men. And so if you own any of those 5 sets and have certain tiers of NFTs, it made you eligible for these airdrops. So, when we began talking with Stargaze, the Atom Accelerator grant, that you guys are very familiar with, and the whole process of launching on a new blockchain for us, that was one of the challenges, letting them know, okay, we're going to do these airdrops, and how are we going to facilitate these in an efficient manner, and we're still in the process of doing that now. But we had an original supply of 5553, but 2553 are airdrops for our existing community. So really we're minting 3000, and we're getting close on that now. So it's a little confusing, I'm sorry, but that's what we're doing.
It sounds very interesting, man. I'll definitely dive deep into that. You said that you originally came from Polygon. How did you get in touch with Stargaze?
It's interesting, back about, I guess it's been going on 2 years ago now, when the Terra Luna tragedy occurred and the collapse of that ecosystem. I was working, I had started working as a content creator. I like to write. I'm a teacher IRL, uh, but I actually became the content manager for a marketplace called One Planet, which had been on Terra, which had been one of their leading NFT marketplaces. And so I was working with them, and during that process, after the Terra Luna tragedy, Polygon had given a $50 million grant called the Art Developer Grant, or the Art Developer Fund, to help migrate these projects from Terra Luna to Polygon. And One Planet was the vehicle they used to facilitate this grant. And so I was working again with One Planet, and I got to know a lot of the projects that had been on Terra Luna, and many of them went either to Polygon or to Stargaze. And so I got to know a lot of projects that eventually chose to go to Stargaze. So it wasn't really new. I'm new to Stargaze, but not really new in the sense that I know a lot of people. And then there's been movement over the last 18 months from Stargaze to Polygon, or from Polygon to Stargaze, projects that have gone back and forth, or that have launched collections on both. Recently, I have a dear friend, Coleman, began with Baby Bulls on Terra Luna, and then he launched a project on Stargaze. He's launched a project on Polygon, I think recently, maybe even Solana. But there's a lot of movement back and forth, and so I already knew a lot of people on Stargaze. And one of the people that I knew very well, and that you know very well, is Maria, a woman from Cosmos. And Maria actually was part of our Spaces team. I saw Bert just popped in. Bert works on our team, and he does, when we were launching the Legion of Gloom collection, we had a team of Spaces hosts. Bert was one of them, and Maria was one of them, and she helped us so much. And she actually let me know about the Atom Accelerator grant. I wasn't aware it was being launched, and she had reached out to me and said, you ought to apply. There's a chance you may could get accepted into this program, be a part of this grant fund or whatever. And so, yeah, knowing Maria was a huge help. And as you know, I've seen some posts you've done. She's an absolute jewel.
So If I understood right, the current collection is basically your first mint on Stargaze. So in the beginning, you said that it's been wonderful for you guys. So tell us a little bit about your experience with Stargaze, because like obviously we are minting in 3 weeks for the first time as well. Tell us what we can expect.
Yeah, it first mint on Stargaze, and I'm not saying this because we were part of the grant fund. I'm not saying this because our mint is light. I'm saying it because it's 100% true. A Stargaze from start to finish, up to this point where we're at now has been incredible. Just I call it the white glove service they've given us. Just the care. I'll give you an example. Brady has been in three separate meetings. We have weekly meetings in our Discord, called the one on Wednesday, the Omega meeting, and then Thursday, the Circle of Heroes meeting. And three different times he's come in just to answer questions, just to, because this is a new experience for our community, a new blockchain, and we've all been on like EVM, and it's totally, of course, totally different, new wallets, a new experience, and Atom is new for us. Most of us have never had any Atom in our wallet, and he's been so gracious, just trying to answer those questions. Their Graphene from their team has been in our Discord, has been, an active presence there. So they've been incredible. I have, nothing but flowers to give to them. I think you're going to be very, very pleased with, what they bring to the table as far as support. And yes, so many, of course, we have a Telegram channel where I'm not a tech guy. That's not my forte at all. And there's been so many questions I've had, and we've had the Telegram channel and just and also a Discord channel as well. And they've been so responsive to my myriad of questions.
Yeah, man, I get that. And then Brady is wonderful, man. I mean, we have had a couple of conversations with him as well. He joined us on Spaces and everything. And in the very beginning, when I didn't really know much about Stargaze, I went on several Discord channels, especially from the top collections. And what I saw is that these people, like their level of degeneracy is definitely lower than like compared to Solana. I don't know how Polygon people are, to be honest. I've never had like a lot of experience with Polygon, but yeah, are you guys planning to keep having collections on Stargaze, or will that be like a one time thing?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. And again, this is no shade on Solana because you know, I think most blockchains have their strengths and so forth. But it was funny when we were on Polygon. Polygon has a reputation as being more business-like, and so we would joke like, when we do our spaces, we have a suit on and a tie, like that business-like approach. And of course, that was tongue in cheek. And then Solana, more degenerate and so forth. And I think Stargaze is, and again, and Polygon, that's tongue in cheek, but we had the reputation there on Polygon as being like more of a business approach to things because of all the Web 2 partnerships Polygon had secured and so forth. But I like Stargaze. Something I love is there's this emphasis on NFTs that uh, a lot of blockchains don't have. Maybe they emphasize DeFi or gaming or some other aspect of Web3, but Stargaze is very NFT centric, which I love. And we may have found a new home. We did not come to Stargaze for a cash grab. We didn't come to just to extract from the ecosystem and then leave. We've come to add value. We did our first Cosmos space this past week on Tuesday. We plan now to have a weekly space exploring the cosmos. So yeah, we're here, and I don't know what the future holds as far as I've talked with Brady about the possibility in the future of migrating our existing collections to Stargaze. I'm not sure that's what we'll do, but we have really enjoyed the experience, and the being in the right place, the right time is always so important in life. But up to this point, our experience on Stargaze has been stellar.
Yeah, I get that, man. Currently looking at the collection you're dropping. Would you mind telling me the name of the male collection on Polygon again? And while I check that out, I am sure Jason has a couple of questions as well.
Sure. This is all like our Twitter or our X is FADA Labs. And so this all goes under FADA Labs. And when we acquired FADA back in October 2023, the FADA women, the women of FADA, were part of the roadmap, and so we just continued on with. I'm not that guy, and we're not that project that just wants to launch multiple collections. Again, we had three in our original roadmap to be released over a period of 3 years, and this is just a project that we acquired that had this in the roadmap, so we went ahead and pushed forward with it. But yeah, it began with uh, the with Fada, and so it's also pronounced the Faden collection, the men of Fada, and that was back in summer of 2023. Now, a little over a year later, we launched the Women of Fada, and there's not a collection plan like the Faden Children or anything like that. This is our last collection with the Fadens, and again, there'll be lore that goes along with it. Our first comic book is almost complete. I put some sneak peeks on our timeline, and we did a pivot on the lore to incorporate the spacecraft that we're traveling on. It's called Stargaze, and incorporate the cosmos. We're traveling the cosmos, and we're even trying to find this elusive mineral called atom that can help save our planet and that type thing. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. If I answered your question.
Yeah, man, I think you definitely did. Appreciate you sharing all that. Does the word FADA or FADA, does it have a specific meaning?
Yeah, it's really an acronym. Again, that's the name for the planet, but it has this idea of some of the core principles that the Fadens live by, like the F, this principle of freedom, this desire to live free, and then the A, like authenticity, being yourself, and being the person that you were created to be, being authentic, and then the D, like diligence, being a hardworking person, and then a like autonomous. Again, this idea of living a life of freedom. These are some of the core principles of the Fadens. So that's a little of the backstory.
Awesome, brother. I love it. I think we touched on this, was it yesterday? We started talking a little bit about values, and I love that you have, that value system right there in the name. I appreciate that. That's definitely very cool and something that I think is sorely lacking from a lot of different projects as I roam the interwebs searching for good people. So I can certainly appreciate that, man. I'll just take a moment and say hello to everyone who's joined us. Is it Bert? I don't think we've met before, but welcome. Is it, I think, Pasem or Pachem? I think we've been on a couple spaces and I've probably butchered your name, so I apologize. Broly, Rob, Julian, Bilo, what's up, buddy? Good to see you, as always. And if anyone wants to jump up and just say hello or chime in on the conversation, feel free. We're just free flowing and learning a little bit about the multi-chain man and what they've got going on today, actually. Obviously, Alex is on the Goodfellas handle, Jason here on the Archer handle, and we are going to be launching on Stargaze on September 20th. So we're definitely trying to learn from those of you guys who have come before us. And we see a lot of, sort of holes in our game. There are a lot of things that Alex and I have talked about stepping up in terms of systems. But one of the things that we do every Friday is that we do this space. We do a live space every Friday that's related to the Goodfellas NFT project, which is what we are repping. And then on Monday, we record a private podcast, and both of these activities are archived at the Mint Mob podcast. So if you guys want to check that out. But we appreciate everyone for popping in and being here. And like I said before, if anyone wants to pop up and say hello, looks like, is it Pasem or Pachem? It looks like you accepted the speaker role, brother. Or I'm not even sure if you're a brother, but say hello, man.
Yeah, yeah, bro. It's Patcham. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I think we've been here in a couple of spaces, and yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, the multi-chain man. Yeah, I think we're always on a conversation. The other day we were together. Discussing some stuffs on the weekly meeting. So it's pretty cool. To be here and also to make out time and be here. Yeah, whenever you have the space. Yeah, I think we have Bert. Yeah, Bert is actually very good friend. Yeah, we've actually been known in this space for more than a year now. So how are you doing today? How is your Friday going?
Things are good, man. Things are good. I remember now. I remember you telling me it was Pachem, and I believe you said that you were out in Africa, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yes, yes, my friend. Yeah, 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 right.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Well, good to see you, man. I appreciate you stopping by and appreciate you contributing. Hope everything's going well out your way. So that said, guys, we've got the Medic Man, and they have a live mint right now on Stargaze. We are patiently waiting the public sale to drop here in the next little bit. I'm going to grab a piece in support of good people doing good things. And, everyone within earshot of my voice, I highly recommend doing the same thing. This will actually be my very first mint or potential mint on Cosmos or Stargaze using Atom. So I'm excited for that. And, that said, I think it's always cool, in the interwebs or in the anonymous world that we live in to get to know people a little bit better. So, multi-chain man, tell me a little bit about your life, man. I know we've spoken briefly. You've spoken briefly about coming up, and I think you said you're originally from the South and that you were trying to drop your accent, which made my heart sink just a little bit because I love that Southern accent. Obviously, being from Georgia, my opinion is biased, but tell me a little bit about you, man, and let's vibe a little bit on that, and we'll dive into some other topics NFT related.
Yeah, hey, thanks. I'm originally from North Carolina, born in Wilmington, and grew up in Durham. And yeah, definitely grew up in the country, out around a lot of tobacco fields in Durham. We moved to Durham when I was very young, and I went to university. At the beginning, I was going with the idea of being in business administration. And actually, my senior year of college, I went to North Carolina State University. My senior year of college, I decided I really wanted to be a teacher. And so actually ended up going 6 years to get my bachelor's, but I don't regret, because I've really enjoyed teaching and coaching and being involved in, trying to help youth. And as you heard me say in a space the other day, I always hesitate to say that we were poor growing up, because I've been able to travel uh, really almost around the world and see real poverty. See people that were really wondering if they were going to be able to get enough to eat that day. We were not to that point, but we, by American standards, grew up poor. And I know what it is, with my mom raising four children on her own. I know what it is to not to have a lot that other people had. I know what it is to grow up and have like one pair of jeans, have one or two shirts to wear to school, not knowing if you're going to have heat during the winter. I know what it is to struggle, and I know what it is also for people to help. And and as I said yesterday in that space, I would feel personally, for with my value system, less of what or who I want to be if I didn't try to do something to give back. And so that's really why I'm in China. For a number of years, I would take 2 weeks during the summer to travel to Asia and do basketball camps. I try to, target very poverty-stricken areas: Cambodia, Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam, and different places in Asia, and go and do basketball camps, feed children, and it's been a joy for me. And with the idea one day I would actually move to Asia, and I didn't think it would be China, but anyway, long story short, that's where I ended up. I've been here for 8 years now. Now, in most places of China, there's not poverty. I mean, there's a lot of wealth in China, especially here in Beijing, and I've lived in Shanghai as well. But also just being able to invest in youth here through coaching, through uh, international schools, has been a joy. And yeah, and that's a big part of our, what we've built with Crypto Crew, now the rebrand to Blockchain Bunch, giving back portion of our mints to impact projects that we support. That's a big part of our ethos and always will be. And so, yeah, that's a little about me. From the business side, while I was a teacher, I also, for 5 years in the US, was a certified financial planner. And by the way, you were joking about my accent. uh, I think the reason I decided to try to change my accent, you can't hide the Southern. And by the way, glad you're from Georgia. But when I moved to Illinois. I taught for several years after I got out of university in North Carolina. Then I got an offer to help in an administrative capacity at a school south of Chicago. And when I first went there, they could not understand me. I had such a thick Southern accent. And so I had to somewhat relearn to speak so they could understand me in the Midwest. Um, and so I try to hide the y'alls, but that Southern accent will always creep out, especially when I'm home with my family. Um, I revert back to just my regular speech. But it's also been, here in China, trying to articulate your words so that the youth can understand is also something. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. It is 2:08, uh, no, 2:06 a.m. here, and I haven't finished my Monster Energy drink yet, so I'm rambling a little bit. I apologize.
Oh, no need, brother. No need. I'm sitting here sipping on an accelerator as well. But yeah, no, you said Wilmington. Actually, for a good portion of my early career out of college, I went to work for my uncle, and he had a company that kind of spanned through the Virginias and Carolinas, and then he had some stores that spanned all the way out to the West Coast as well. So I spent a lot of my 20s out in the flatlands near the Tar River in North Carolina in a town called Little Washington. I actually lived on just off the river there, and it was a really interesting place to be. Like you said, lots of tobacco fields and lots of good people. I think it was the original Washington D.C. if my history serves. But it was one of those experiences where you definitely feel you feel the weight of small town, because when you come into like a smaller town as an outsider, you really feel it. People there have been there for generations. A lot of times families have been there for generations, and the weight of those relationships has a tendency to, keep you kind of guessing as to how close you can actually ever become, being an outsider looking in. But beautiful country. I loved being out on the water and, made many trips to uh, Greensboro, Greenville, the Research Triangle. I gotta wonder though, man, are you one of those people who's Tar Heel baby blue, or what's going on there? Is that a part of your life or no?
Since I went to North Carolina State, I am very much an ABC fan. Anybody but Carolina. I absolutely detest the baby blue, and again, that's again tongue in cheek. I'm not a Tar Heel fan as far as university. Since I grew up a North Carolina State fan and went to university there, you really have this dislike for anything baby blue. So, yeah, I'm red and white of state, and we know we are the best. Hands behind our back, we can take on all the rest, and then, the fight song goes on.
That's great, man. Yeah, that color is a bit obnoxious, especially when you come from the I bleed red and black country. But anywho, I know football season is coming up, so I thought I would ask if if you're going to be pulling for anyone in particular. But yeah, so back to NFTs, we were talking a little bit at the top of the hour about some of the real world asset tokenization that we expect. I've mentioned many times how I feel like blockchain is going to basically replace the trademark office and the IP rights, sort of industry. And I'm curious if you have a take on that. Do you have a vision that you see happening with blockchain where, we sort of eliminate the middlemen in terms of digital ownership, and we can start to get to this place where real world asset tokenization sort of replaces the slow, original way of sending paperwork to and from the Library of Congress to get things trademarked or copyrighted, or am I kind of off my rocker there? What are your thoughts?
No, you're absolutely spot on. It's interesting you asked this. I've been helping with a company here in Beijing that's making that transition from what we would call Web 2 to Web 3 with RWAs, with the real world assets. It's a real estate company. Again, there's a lot of wealth here in Beijing. And so they've actually purchased a lot of land globally, especially in the US and especially around the Houston, Texas area, and to help expedite that process of buying and selling land, and also to enable like Chinese investors to invest. Maybe not, they don't have $1 million to invest in a property, but they can buy like fractionalized shares of real estate that this company oversees, like becomes like rental property. So this company buys land, builds the houses, they do like the property management for these houses, and then they rent them out and take care of all the rental details. But uh, here in China, you can invest in that through RWAs, and it's done in real time. And then if you want, you don't have to get a lawyer. If people who've ever bought or sold property in the US, how painstaking that can be, how costly that can be because of needing that middleman, needing that lawyer to do all the closing and all the paperwork and so forth. And this is like taking that step out of the process and also making it so much quicker. You don't even so much need like a realtor. You can do a lot of this online through the blockchain transparently. So it's really exciting. Another use case for NFTs.
100%, man. I couldn't agree more. I think there's a company called Proppy that's doing basically digitizing addresses right now. I think they're on ETH, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But I did tokenize my own address here in Arizona. And, obviously RWA, real world asset tokenization, is something that we've talked quite a bit about inside the context of our project. Obviously, NFTs can be used for lots of different things, from ticketing to memberships to, tying digital and physical products together. And I know that in listening to some of your spaces and hearing you guys speak, I know that that's part of your plan. I know you've got some, you've already mentioned the comic, but I know you've got some. Um, I think you said you had uh, some like I forget what they're called. Those little 4 or 5 inch dolls. Oh, what are they? Pops, something like that, or some plushies that you're getting ready to release or working with a company to release. And what's been your experience, or what is your plans in terms of incorporating that with the digital sphere?
Yeah, I think one of the metas for Web 3 right now are the Web 2 integrations, bridging that gap and onboarding people that way. And what some call phygitals, that cross between the physical world and the digital world. Our first foray into the physical world will be the trading card game that we're getting ready to send to production. And once I sign the contract, I've got the contract here at my home. Once I sign off, it'll be done within a week or so. I'm just trying to figure out some details. Some of this is funny, like the contract we're signing originally will be for 50,000 packs of cards, 5 cards per pack. And so, they've sent me the details. That's going to be 1,300 and about 50 big boxes, 36 packs of cards per box of cards. So it's going to be over 1,300 boxes. And so I'm trying to figure out, where am I going to store 1,300 boxes of cards? I can't make my home a warehouse, so I think I'm gonna have to like rent a storage space, and then trying to figure out how to, uh, because we'll put these on sale online here in China. It's a market called Jingdong. It's the Chinese Amazon, but it's bigger, believe it or not, than Amazon. Just so many people here in China, of course, in Jingdong, or what they call JD, is the place to be as far as an online commerce space. And so that's the plan. And so that step one will be the trading card game, and then you mentioned the figurines. Pop Mart figurines are absolutely on fire here in China. These little, I don't know, 4 to 6 inch, I guess about 4 inch figures, really cute. Uh, they're collectibles, and often you can put them in blind boxes where people don't know which one they're getting. I mean, sometimes you know which one you're getting, but people like actually that, that unknown, kind of the gambling aspect where you get the box and you may keep getting the same ones that you've already had, but you're trying to complete your set, and so you keep buying these blind boxes. They're absolutely just a mammoth industry here in China. And the Pop Mart global headquarters is literally about 25 minutes from my home. And so we've had conversations with them, but we want to do this trading card game first and get this rolling. And then that'll probably be late 2024. Yeah, I know it's hard to believe it's already almost September, but it'll probably be about 3 months before we're able to really, make that happen with the Pop Mart figurines. But we want to get this trading card game, online, as far as with the online commerce with JD, and figure out how to. I don't want my wife to come home from work to 1,300 boxes in the apartment. So I've got to figure that out.
I hear that, brother. I just want to take a moment and say welcome to everyone who's joined the Mint Mob Spaces. We're here with the Goodfellas. Alex and I are here. Alex is on the Goodfellas handle. This is Jason Archer on the Archer handle. Looks like Friends faculty joined us. How are you guys doing? You guys want to say hello?
Absolutely, man. Shout out to both of you, Jason Archer, man. If you don't know, Banksy and Batunos has had friendship with you guys for a long period of time, and I may have been receiving some alpha that you guys are gonna fucking send, dog. That you guys got a lot of things cooking, so we here to show support to our fellow friends in the space. We're not shilling nothing but friendship, dog. We're here for Archer. We're here for you, dog, and yo, man, you guys you guys are doing some dope shit, man. Can't wait, man.
I appreciate that, brother. You always bring the energy, and it's so much appreciated. This at Jinsuki, yeah? You hiding behind the mic over there?
Yep. It's Ginsu for yep, absolutely. Ginsu, tomato. Hell yeah, bro. We here for you guys, bro. Let's fucking go, bro. Hell yeah. It's about time, dog. It's about time, man. Let's go.
I love it. I love it. I think we found the Web3 hype man of the century, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate the energy. Thanks for popping in, man. You're always welcome. We're here every Friday, 10, actually, I guess I should say UTC time, 5:15 UTC. So thanks for popping in, brother. Hope to see you in more and more spaces. You're always welcome. Everyone else who's joined, who else we got down here? Corey. Let's see. I see a lot of names I probably can't pronounce very well. Gritch.
Hell yeah. So check it real quick. Corey is a manager, a collab manager. He also works with the Vibe Tribe Imposters. And Gritch is like a community guy, Beat Cop for the Ouijans. So these guys, they're connected. Oh, and now we got Zombie here. Zombie from the Enchanted Miners, bro. We got a lot of fucking people cooking here. Yo, this is a bullish sign, dog. Let's fucking go.
I love it, man. I love it. I super love it. Appreciate that energy and welcome to everyone. I see you've got a few requests for mics. We'll get that out as soon as humanly possible. One of the topics that we're vibing on today is like one of the use cases for NFTs being real world asset tokenization. We've got the multi-chain man joining us. They have a live mint right now on Stargaze. The good fellows are going to be releasing the female form of our collection on Stargaze very soon. We've got Petunios, who Jinsuki mentioned earlier, doing some art updates on that particular collection to do some stuff that no one has ever seen before. So yeah, lots of good things happening. And I wanted to touch base with the multi-chain man once more. One of the things that you mentioned that we're super curious about, and maybe you can kind of be our consultant and guide here since you're already blazing the trail and doing so many great things in the RWA sphere. I mean, being in China, I'm guessing you've got a few ends with different production facilities, But I'm just curious what the high level looks like in terms of building relationships with a production facility, maybe overseas. I mean, Alex is in Germany. I'm in Arizona here in the States, and I'm just curious what that looks like, and if you have any advice or maybe a step by step we could go through in terms of starting to build some relationships, because ultimately we're going to be doing something similar in the RWA realm.
Yeah, that's a great question. About a year ago, really had this idea, this desire to bridge over into the Web 2 sphere with some products, and there were some people in Web 3 that, in fact, there was one that was working with producers, with manufacturers here in China, and then I was in discussions with them, and then they just somewhat disappeared in the bear market, and somewhat by accident, I was tutoring some students to a brother and sister, and just really became close with the family over about an 8 month period. But the father was always gone. He's traveling back and forth every week from Beijing to Shanghai and down to a place called Hangzhou. And so I rarely would see him. Every now and then he would be there, uh, but we developed a friendship with the family. They've become like family, and found out that the father is actually a high level executive for Jindong, and so much appreciated me tutoring his children and the building that relationship with them, that he began to ask me about some of my outside interest, and he found out about the NFT. He doesn't understand NFTs completely, but I told him about my desire to start a business, and so he's on board. And so as soon as we get our first product out, he's see, obviously you can have the best product, but if you don't market it, I know Bert speaks about this a lot. He's a marketing guru. And, a lot of times people fail because of the marketing aspect. They have a good product, they may have a lot of things in place, but if people don't know about it, it's of no value. And so he's not only going to help me set up the store, he's going to help me market it. And, if you get put on the front page or in the right place on the website of JD, you can really take off. And so I'm really excited getting this out there. There's a there's the joke in the US, it seems like everything's made in China, and there is a lot made in China. A lot of the goods globally are produced. And toys, there's a city called Yiwu, a small city by Chinese standards, only about 1 million people. But in the city of Yiwu, about an hour and a half south of Shanghai, basically the city is just one toy manufacturing plant after another. It is the place to be. Sometimes cities, or sometimes there'll be like exhibitions that'll take place. Maybe there's an auto parts exhibition or a fashion exhibition. But in Iwu, it is a continual toy exhibition. So people from around the world, anytime during the year, can come to these huge exhibition halls, and there's these toy manufacturers that are pitching their services. And so I've actually connected with the guy named Tony. His business is called like Tony. I don't know what it is in Chinese, but it is. I'm Tony also, and so I've been working with him, and he speaks pretty good English, which sometimes the language issue can be a barrier. So I can be a POC now if someone in the US or some Europe or whatever is interested, and manufacturing, especially toys, definitely have the contacts now. And I'm going to be making a trip down to Iwu just to see our product before it goes live. They've actually sent me, I've got here in my room here, my little office here, I've got the samples, but I want to see the whole set before it goes live. So I'll fly down to Iwu. So yeah, having those contacts, the network is your net worth. That's so important.
100%, brother. I appreciate that. I definitely want to keep having this conversation and learning a little bit more. You guys are obviously about a year, maybe a year and a half ahead of us, and we're still building out a lot of our systems and trying to staff up the right way so that we can do this. And coming from Solana, that's been a bit of a challenge, but we're starting to figure it out a little bit more and more, and definitely want to jump down that RWA path on some physical products. And so maybe we can have a little bit more of a conversation around that. I know maybe Alex, if you're still on the call, maybe you could, if you have some questions, maybe go ahead and start formulating those. And while you're doing that, I'll throw it over to Bert. If you want to come up and say hello and maybe talk a little bit or speak to a little bit of some of the things that the multi-chan man is chatting over, man, feel free to step up to the mic.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? So I just came in to show some support here for my boy Tony. So no, yeah, man. I mean, I I'm super stoked for like kind of what we're building and the expansion that we're doing. I mean, I think everybody knows Web3 is in a huge lull right now. There's depending on what figure you want to go with, there's a ton of money that is left Web3 and overall investing in general right now, right? And I think those of us that have been around, Tony knows this, he's been around for forever. I've been around since 2011 doing this. And so I think what we realize is, these are the times where you build, and these are the times where you push a little harder, and these are the times where you try to leverage what you have to try to scale or to grow, because a lot of other people are falling back, or a lot of other people are stagnant right now, kind of waiting to see what happens next, which we kind of usually get into this kind of stuff right around election times and all these kind of things. But I do believe that this election time is going to be a little different. I know everybody wants to say, one side versus the other, but I personally don't know that we're going to have a pop either way, no matter who wins. I think the pop is going to happen after the election, because I think we're going to get a renewed interest in crypto either way, is just what I see. I really believe that we're going to get a new resurgent interest in crypto no matter what happens on who gets in there, because I do believe that we're starting to see companies and larger corporations and everyone lean further into this. So all that being said, for me, that's why I'm so excited for what we're doing, not only with, with our stuff with the blockchain bunch, and obviously with what, Tony is doing, and what we're doing with the FADA collection and a bunch of other stuff that we have coming up. Is there's a ton of stuff that we can do here in Web3, and there's a lot of really cool things that we can try and make happen, from games to obviously different NFT collections. We're 404 is huge right now, and there's so many really cool stuff coming down the pipe here in Web3. However, the companies that I feel are really going to take advantage of this are the ones that are able to find some outside tie-in, right, to something out in the real world. Tony just happens to have an incredibly large audience that he can look at, right, in China. And so being able to kind of have those outward tie-ins outside of Web3 does two things, in my opinion. Number one, obviously, it gives you other streams, other avenues, other ways to be able to not only make money, but to be able to market your business, right? New eyes on your business. And that to me is really the biggest piece, which is then, conceivably, obviously, what we all know is, trying to bring more people here into Web3, right? So how can we do that? And to me, when you're able to kind of connect these outside sources, whether it's, billboard ads, or, advertising through, NFTs on clothing or any of that kind of stuff out in the real world, or specific hard level or hard copy actual pieces of material, like he's saying, whether it's the pop figures or stickers or comic books or whatever it is, action figures, whatever it is you can try to build that has a life outside of Web3, it adds a huge tie-in back to Web3 if you're able to make that successful. And what we're finding is that, that whereas we're somewhat of a niche crowd here sometimes, that niche crowd has a very big view if you can tie it to a real world asset that people really, really want to be involved in, right? So just for example, take trading cards or comic books or any of those kind of entertainment type stuff. Hey man, if you can figure out a way to tie something back to your if you can figure out a way to tie something back to the Marvel universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or superheroes or something like that, that's going to be a huge audience that you can now attract, that's going to learn about Web3. So that's why I feel like there's so many opportunities for us coming up for what we have. And again, we're not unique in that what we have. I just think that because we offer so many different pieces and a lot of you can be involved with the blockchain bunch in a lot of different ways, right? There's different collections, there's different communities, there's a lot of different stuff. I think it gives us a little bit more, tie into a lot of different areas outside of Web3 that then we can try to attract. And that's why I get so excited. And the stuff that Tony is doing right now, in China and stuff like that is just absolutely amazing. So
Awesome, brother. I appreciate that. Y dot, I see you, brother, had a hand up. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to get to you uh, very, very soon. I just wanted to throw up one quick question over at Bert, or one concept. One of the things that I've seen happening in the Web3 space, and I'm sure many people can attest to this from the degeneracy on down, is I feel like what I've seen, at least anecdotally, is people in the space, the population itself hasn't necessarily grown much. What I've seen is I've seen like armies of people go from one project, sell that project, go to the next project, dump that project, go to the next project, and they just sort of make the rounds through Web3. And one of the things that Alex and I have talked about extensively is how we onboard new users. And I feel like one of the barriers to that is a lot of what's been done in Web3 has just simply been, hey, look how cool my stuff is. It's almost like developers showing off for another developer, but the UI isn't quite there yet. The value proposition to the end user isn't quite there yet. And I'm just curious if you have a take or an opinion. I'll open this up to Bert first, and if anyone else wants to chime in, then we'll get to you, Y Dot. If you have an idea or a way or a methodology that you see would be best in terms of onboarding that new user to a Web3 experience.
yeah, it's so interesting, man. This topic is where I think everybody really needs to kind of focus their energy, right? Is not actually what, not the actual process, or not the concept of onboarding, but then the process of, how we do that. There's different, methods to this madness, right? I look at like what the guys, for example, at like Gas Hero, are doing over on Polygon, and some of those kind of things where you're able to interact with Web3 without really knowing you're interacting with Web3, right? That 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 level of interaction, to me, it's where all of the discussions, the back office discussions, that we have in all these meetings about how we're going to move forward, it's really where all that happens. So it's interesting because that's the big question. Do you want people using your stuff and then it's it's Web3, or do you want them knowing it's Web3 and then getting more comfortable with it? um, I really was in the latter camp for a long, long time. I felt like, we really need to have, methods and facilities for people to be able to really lean into knowing what they're doing, right? Because otherwise, it's how are they going to pump it up if they don't know what they're doing? I've moved into the other camp now, a little bit more, where I really do feel like if you can provide a customer journey, an actual customer journey for somebody, and it doesn't seem jarring, to me, then you have something cooking, right? If you can figure out a way to onboard them without them knowing that they're using Web3, and then the introduction to what they've been doing is not a jarring process, right? It is a very comfortable process. I firmly believe that's probably the best method. And I leave it vague only because, there's a million different ways to do that, right? Like we know, obviously, the bigger one is video games, right? Hey, if you can get them to log on and a wallet just gets created and they just get to start playing. And then somehow when they want to buy a new skin or a new clothes or a new gun or a new whatever, now they have to interact in there. There's instructions and a process of say, hey, go here, click this, do this. You get this dropped into an actual wallet. What is a wallet? Well, here's what a wallet is. If you can figure out that process to where they're going to just say, oh, wow, this was awesome, and I want to keep doing it, as opposed to, oh my God, what the hell? They tricked me into doing this scammer stuff. If you can figure out a way to introduce it that way, then I absolutely think that's probably the best way to do it, because then people are already going to have been using it. The process then will be very, very, not really intrusive. And I think people will be more apt to want to continue to do that, right? So I think that, to me, right now is probably where I think a lot of people are trying to lean into, right? Is how do we make it, their ability to just be using Web3 and then figure out a way to tell them how they're doing it, right?
Love it, man. Appreciate that take. Yeah, I mean, as a marketer myself, coming into the space, like one of the things that we always focus on is eliminating barriers. How many interactions do we need to have before we get someone to click the buy button, right? That's always the big question online. And, I think a lot of Web3 has erected barriers in many, many different ways. A lot of that's just because the technology seems to be in its infancy. But as we continue to progress, I really can vibe on that idea that smoothing out that process, having seamless experiences, having smoother UIs. I mean, I definitely think that's the way to go. You mentioned the video game pathway where people don't really know that they're dealing in wallets, but they're dealing in wallets. And I think when we get to that place on pretty much any way you can interact with a Web3 or a digital asset, I think that's when we start to arrive. Welcome to everyone who just joined in. This is Mint Mob Spaces episode 50 by Goodfellas. Y. I see you're up next, brother. We're going to open up the floor for anyone who has more questions, and we're going to probably end up starting to wind the space down here in the next few minutes. So just fair warning to anyone who wants to speak. And that said, Y. It's all you, my friend. Go ahead.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Doing well, and yourself?
Alright, so Web3 is full of scams. How to avoid it?
You just asking in general how we would recommend avoiding scams?
I said like Web3 is like full of scams. How we avoid it?
Mm.
Like how we do not fall in it, in the scams and the rugs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can speak to the rugging aspect of it. I'm sure everyone here on the call has probably been rugged by an NFT project at some point. But I can give you my take on it, and then I'll just open the floor if anyone wants to throw some advice at Y dot. Coming from the traditional investment world, there's one of the things that we always focus on is making sure that we understand A, what's being sold to us, and B, we always make sure that we know who's involved. And I think one of the greatest barriers to that in Web3 is the anonymity that we're dealing with. And for this reason, myself and Alex, who's on the Goodfellas handle, we are not anonymous. We're not hiding behind pseudonyms. If someone needs to contact us, they can. We're freely willing to give our contact information to community members or people who are interested in the project. In fact, coming into our project was gated, and most of our bosses, people who bought Bitcoin ordinals to come in, we had belly-to-belly conversations with them. So if you are younger and you're coming into the marketplace and you're looking for places to invest, and I hesitate to use that word because I don't really think NFTs are investments at this point yet. What I would highly recommend you do is don't put your money anywhere where you can't figure out the answers to any of those questions. If you can't figure out who is behind a project, if you don't have clear understanding, if you don't have a clear and concise direction, these are all red flags. And because there's 1,000 projects that seem to pop up on every launchpad every 5 minutes, it's not like if you say no to one, you're not going to have another opportunity. So I think you need to practice the art of just saying no more often and being a little bit more selective and a little bit more careful about who you associate with. And this is basically the whole idea behind the Goodfellas NFT project. One of the reasons we exist is to sort of end that and to provide IP rights and some level of security and trust to the people that we're providing value to. So that's kind of my take on it. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but if anyone else wants to give it a go, feel free to step up and throw some advice his way. Alex, you got anything for us, buddy?
Yeah, man, I actually stepped down a little bit because we went a little bit over time and I need to be on the road. And I know that the noise can be quite annoying, but I really enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate each and every one of you guys stepping up and speaking to us today. Yeah, but I 100% agree, man. I just feel like you need to do your own research, obviously. That's what everyone preaches. And getting all these experiences, you in the end, I think you find a way to like getting like to avoid at least the obvious rocks. and the obvious scams. So yeah, hope we could give Wydot. I hope he's satisfied with the answer. And I think Jinsu raised his hand and wants to speak. Oh no. Jinsu, are you good?
Yeah, I'm here, brother. That's a very good take, man. What I recommend for people personally, which honestly, I love your insight on that. That's incredible. When you first tap into a community, if you can, before you mint anything, before you buy anything, look at the community, look at the traction, look at what people are doing, and when you jump into any community, don't ape in immediately. Buy a couple, buy a pass, because remember, for a lot of people these are JPEGs, but for some people this is a pass. This is a pass into the community, into the utility, into everything else. You kind of have to dip your toes in the water before you jump in, hypothetically. But when you find these people, you have to also understand that NFTs isn't one of those things where it's like a meme coin and you're gonna 1,000x your bags, go to the moon. A lot of it is building, and what you want to constantly see is that even if it fails, but that the founder is trying and that the founder is transparent. Two things. Transparency is huge. Even when they fail, if they're able to admit that they have failed at a hurdle and they're still trying, for me, that's bullish personally. And in a lot of smaller communities that I've invested in, even like per se, like the Goobs, for an example, the Goobs is like constantly communities present, founder keeps trying, always on spaces, always tapping in with people, letting people know what he's doing. Like these are the kind of bullish signs that you're looking for a community. And the camaraderie. You're looking for camaraderie with these communities and with these people, because the people are the ones that build the project. If a founder is there for the project rather than the project there for the founder, that's another thing. You have to understand the founder has to have the sentiment that you're here for your people and not the other way around. So if you see that sentiment in a community, very bullish sign, man. That, but then again, that's just my personal take as Ginsu. You know what I mean? And what I've seen that's given success. Outside of like these influencer projects that go to the moon or whatever the hell. Those are even those, man. I wouldn't mint them. I would wait for the secondary, see how the secondary does, and then jump in.
All great advice. Great advice. Does anybody else want to touch on this topic? I know we had someone step up. Is it Michael? Michael stepped up a moment ago and requested the mic. Are you here, buddy? Or is that my imagination? Okay, it looks like that might have been my imagination. So, all right, cool. So we have quite a few takes on the whole rug thing. I'm just going to say this really quick, and then we'll start winding down. If anybody has anything else they want to say, I want to open the floor. Go ahead and start formulating your thoughts on the whole rugging thing. And especially if you're youthful and you're coming in and you haven't seen a lot of market cycles. Um, why not? I'm not sure if you're still on the call, but if you are, one of the things I just want to issue a massive word of caution to you is just remember that FOMO is fake. Okay. There is no missing out. The fear of missing out is a natural human psychological reaction to people marketing to you in a effective manner. But just understand that in this marketplace, there's always another opportunity. And if you miss something, you can catch the next thing. So there's no need to really ape in. Like again, Suki was saying, there's really no need to throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks. There's really no need to worry about missing out because something else is going to come along. And at the end of the day, when you're talking about investing versus speculating, which is kind of what this market is, investments always give you multiple ways out. Speculation never does. Speculation means you got to find a bigger sucker to sell something to. And the NFT market is basically built on speculation. Looks like Bert has an opinion, man. Throw up your hand. I see your hand up. Go ahead and chime in, my friend.
So just some figures to back up what you're saying. So crypto millionaires, less than 2%, 1.7% of crypto millionaires were made on the pop, right? The first day. 79% of crypto millionaires were made after the initial pop, second day, second hour, whatever it was, right? So it just shows you that the amount of people that are out there that are saying that they hit Doge or they hit this or they hit Sheeb or they hit this or they hit Mommy Milkers or whatever it was, right? Like that's less than 2% of the people that are millionaires. All the people that made the money, all the people that are sitting on cash, all the crypto kitties and and all those kind of people, they're all doing that because they sat, they waited, they looked at it and they found the right entry and they made money. The people that quote unquote got lucky, that's less than 2% of the market. So that should tell you right there that there's no reason to chase. There is no such thing as FOMO. You're better off waiting and going in later on almost 100% of the time. So I'm just as a point of reference.
Dude, I love that, man. I appreciate you backing that up. That's 100% spot on. And, one of the things that we've been talking heavily about inside our project and now on Spaces as we're starting to, get out into the interwebs is, this idea of playing long-term games, playing infinite games. And if you're going to get good at something, if you're going to be around a long term, for the long term, you have to think in terms of people who have vision. So if you're looking at someone to quote unquote invest in or speculate on, you need to make sure that you're willing to play a long-term game with that person. If you're not, if you feel like it's just one of those things where you're going to be in and out or try to get in and out, then what you're basing your decision making on is pure luck. And that's not where you want to be. So everything that we're doing with Goodfellas, I know everything that Tony's doing with all of his projects, and obviously Bert chiming right in there. Insuki, same thing. Like everybody that you're hearing who is generating some form of success and doing it in a specific way is following some sort of strategy, is following some sort of system, and they're not deviating from that, right? But what we see a lot of times in the NFT buys, especially speculative buys, is it's, what, I'm going to FOMO in and then hope for the best, and hope is not a strategy. So just remember that if you're youthful and coming into the market. And also remember the other thing too, I've been through a few market cycles being an old guy in the space. And, the word market cycle exists for a reason. If you're not there this cycle, be patient. Sit on your ammo, wait to deploy until you can get a good entry point, just like what Bert was saying, and then ride the direction you want to ride. You'll know you're a good speculator, a good investor when you can make money in down and up markets, not just one or the other. So with that said, I'll open the floor. Anybody have anything they want to add? We're going to go ahead and start wrapping up here soon. I want to start thanking everybody for being here, but the floor is open. All right. No one has anything that they want to add at this point. We definitely went a little bit over time, but I just want to say a huge, huge thanks to Tony for coming, sharing a little bit about what you guys are going to do, man. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your mint and give everybody an opportunity to check it out on Stargaze, and then I'll close this bad boy out?
Sure thing. Thank you for the opportunity and great to vibe with Bert, our guy Bert. We're in a fantasy football league together, so we're going to be doing the draft here in a few days. So really excited. Bert's a great guy and a marketing genius. If you ever need advice or help on a team with marketing, he's your guy to talk to. And his sons are both like D1 prospects in football. So he's living the dream now, a coach, and his sons being like two of the best players, maybe the two best players on the team. But yeah, we are finishing the whitelist in about 15 minutes. The public phase goes live. Actually, 11 minutes the public goes live, but we're at 86% minted out. We're hoping that it goes quickly in the public. We do have an NFT. It's all randomized, of course, with the mint, but as far as I know, no one has claimed to have minted the one of one. There's a bounty on NFT number one. That's a one of one. There's a 1,000 USDC, $1,000 USDC value or bounty on that NFT. As far as I know, no one's minted it. They haven't claimed it if they have. And so we think that the public's going to go quickly. Again, at 86%, public starts in about 10 minutes now. And so jump over to Stargaze if you want to mint. There is a max of 10 mints per wallet during the public phase. If we had set the limit a little bit higher, we would have minted out hours ago, but we had set the limit at 2 mints per wallet for the whitelist. So I had so many people DMing me like, "Why did you only let us mint 2? Why couldn't we mint it 3, 4, 5?" But I think it's going to go quick. We're excited. But for us, of course, For some projects, the mint is like the end of the journey. For legitimate projects and people, the mint is just the beginning. When you mint out, that's just the beginning of the journey. And then it's time to return value to your community, to your investors who've believed in you. And that's our plan. That's what we're going to continue doing, like we've tried to do from day one.
I love it, brother. We love what you're doing, and we are super stoked to continue to relationship build with you guys and your community, bridge the gap between Solana and Stargaze. We're going to be joining you guys soon there. Jinsuke, you got anything you want to add, brother?
I just really want you guys to send us an invite the next one you guys do. I'm super bullish, man. Let's go.
You got it, brother, man. You're always welcome. You know that. But Jim, if you have any last words, man, feel free to pipe up. Otherwise, we'll toss it to Bert, see if he has anything. All right, Bert, I guess it's to you, brother, if you have any final words.
Hey, man, thanks for having me up, guys. I appreciate it. I always love to do this. It's been crazy, man. The last few weeks, haven't had as much opportunity to get up in spaces for a while, and so it's always fun to be able to do this. I'm so stoked for what Tony is doing there, and thanks for kind of taking the time to pump this up. I wish you guys nothing but the best on your mint. If you guys need anything and at all, let me know, and I can, I'm happy to help in any way I can, guys. So good luck on your mint, and let's get this thing minted out here in just a little bit, guys.
That's it, guys. We're definitely going to be minting this thing out for you guys. Definitely want to support these people doing great things in the marketplace. I mean, the truth is we a lot of money gets blown and thrown around on degen projects that go nowhere. It's really time to take a moment and really invest in the people, speculate on the people who have committed themselves to doing good things. So, that said, Tony is definitely one of those people. Bert, appreciate you stepping up, man. It's great to hear your voice, and I hope to meet you at some point and maybe do something with you as well. We're definitely of the vein that we want to play long-term games with long-term people. And that's the sense that I get from you guys as well. That's kind of the sense that we're getting from Stargaze as well. And we want to make sure that we continue to provide value to our holders as well. So for those of you guys who are here, thanks for being here. This is Jason Archer, and Alex is on the Goodfellas handle. We are running the Goodfellas NFT project. We do spaces every Friday at 5 p.m. or 5:15 p.m. UTC. And our whole thing is making sure that we have legal IP rights provided to our holders so that you guys actually own what you mint. And just like Tony, we've taken on multiple collections and saved multiple collections and gone back and righted a bunch of wrongs where artists have been screwed. And ultimately that will grow into an RWA IP rights business, one of the first and only on Solana. And we'll be dropping on Stargaze on the 20th. So if you're interested in, whitelisting for that and getting some of Batuños' incredible artwork, hit the Goodfellas timeline and submit the form, and we'll get your wallet on the list as a guaranteed whitelist spot. That said, if there's nothing else to add, I want to just acknowledge everybody for being here. Bert, Tony, Bilo, Rob, everybody who stepped up to speak, Pachim, Jinsuke, thank you guys all, and we will see you in the next spaces. Take care. Have a fantastic weekend, guys.